Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm very excited to have Tendayi Viki joining us. Tendayi, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So you help elephants do ballet. What does that mean, Tendayi?
I work with large companies and I help them acquire and use startup practices and processes and behaviors. And so that's pretty much what it means, helping elephants do ballet.
It's an interesting way to describe what you do. Why do you come up with that, or why do it that way?
I don't know where it came from. I think I must have read it in an article somewhere, and it just kind of stuck with me as like the best way to describe that. Some people make a comparative difference between speed boats and oil tankers, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I help oil tankers behave like speedboats. Yeah.
Got it. What's the reaction been to that way of introducing yourself or describing what you do?
Oh, yeah. It's been really interesting. I mean, I've got a book coming out which does another play on that same metaphor. It's called Pirates in the Navy. And so Steve Jobs once famously said, it's better to be a pirate than to join the Navy. Mm. And he was talking about the distinction between startups and large companies. And so I thought, well, if you're going to be an entrepreneur or an innovator inside a large company, you're effectively a pirate trying to operate within the confines of the Navy. So, how do you do that well? And I think some of that kind of visual metaphor stuff helps people wrap their heads around some of the complexity they're having to deal with.
Yeah, I really like that. When I was preparing for our conversation today and reading and watching some of your stuff, I saw you introduce yourself in that way. I said, well, that's really interesting, because a lot of people describe themselves in ways that is not memorable. I'm a marketing consultant, or I'm a management consultant, or I work with organizations, or things like that you can forget in 30 seconds. And then other times people try and describe what they do in a way that becomes so complex or convoluted or even cute that you don't really still understand. But here you've created something or use something that I would imagine when you use it, people just say, like, what does that mean? Actually then helps you to create a conversation, which is what consultants and experts and thought leaders are, we're all after, is to create conversations with those that we want to serve to learn more. So thanks for sharing that. You've written 4 books on innovation. Mm-hmm. At what point in your career do you decide to write and really make that a core part of your brand?
So there's an element of me, because I'm a former academic. I used to teach university in the United States. They call them college professors. So in the UK, they're called lecturers. I was a university professor. I have a PhD in psychology, and I taught psychology for 12 years. And during that time, I was doing a lot of writing anyway, like publishing in peer-reviewed journals. I think I published like over 40, 50 articles. Mm. And so writing has always been like part of just what I do. But then what I suddenly realized when I left academia, I took a sabbatical to go do some innovation work with Pearson, the global education company. And then I just never went back to academia. But what my academic background did give me was this sense of like pattern recognition. And so as I was doing the work, being an academic forces you to do is to think about first principles. You have to be like a first principle thinker. You have to think about the underlying principles that drive the things that you're seeing. And so whenever I'm doing work, I'm always looking and searching for what are those first principles that allow me to then be able to take this and do it again in a different context. Even though I might do it tactically differently, what are the first principles that inform those decisions that I would be making? And so doing that then forces you to codify what you're thinking about. And the best tool I found for me to think and codify what I do is writing. And so I just end up writing articles and books. That's my way of expression, I guess.
Many people flirt with that idea of writing a book, but they don't actually commit to it. So here you had the background right from academia. For those that don't have that background, but they know that writing or creating relevant content could really help them, but they haven't found that driver to do it, or there's just something holding them back. Like, what have you seen, even from maybe colleagues or your own experience, can help people to kind of get over the thinking and actually move to doing?
Yeah, you know what they say, right? Inspiration is for amateurs. Professionals just show up and start working. I think I heard that somewhere. I don't know who actually said that, but there's 2 things that maybe 3 things. The first thing is people think they don't have anything to say. right? So they're critiquing their experience as if it's not worthy of sharing. But what I've found is that if you're actually in the trenches doing real work, the stuff that you're going through and the decisions that you're making and the choices that you're faced with, even the things that you've failed at, are actually really interesting stories to tell. They help people gain an understanding of what they're doing. And then the second challenge people face is that they're waiting for inspiration. Like, there is no inspiration. You just have to sort of sit at your desk and just start typing. And then the final thing is people have writer's block because they're looking for the perfect sentence. And yeah, it just never happens. Like, there's no perfect sentence. So, I mean, I work in innovation, and one of the challenges that large companies face is they're looking for the perfect business plan. They're looking for the one idea that's going to save the company, you know? And the thing we know is that, like, with everything that's kind of impactful, you have to do hundreds and hundreds of versions and hundreds of attempts at the same idea before you come up with something interesting. I don't know if you've ever read the book Originals by Adam Grant.
Okay.
He talks about how, like, you can't ever write anything great until you're comfortable with writing a whole bunch of rubbish all the time. And so he talks about how Shakespeare, we know like 10 or 12 plays that are really great, but he wrote like hundreds of others that we don't really know about. You know, Mozart wrote like 10 pieces that we know that are really famous, but he wrote 500 others that we don't know anything about. Same thing with painting and art. And so I write for Forbes, and I just sit down at my desk and write and publish what I've written. I don't even think about it. And some of my stuff has 400 views, and some of my other stuff has 11,000 views. And like, while I'm writing, I don't know which one is going to get the views. Like, some of the stuff that gets views surprises me. And then I just suddenly realize, okay, there's a thread there that I can pull at and then maybe make that part of a book or something.
I'm shaking my head, or I should say I'm nodding up and down, because what you're sharing is just so powerful. Like, I think whether it's applied to a large organization or to an independent solo consultant, like, this is at the core of really what holds people back, right? It's waiting for, like that, you said, the inspiration or things to be just right? The environment around them, or in some cases, like, their website has to be ready before they start contacting and people and having conversations, or they need to figure out how things should be down the road before they actually get there. And all these things hold people back. But I continue to see in different interviews, as well as in my own life and through studies and reading, that the most successful people in history are exactly as you said. They're those who create, and they don't need to necessarily feel that creative feeling. Creative feeling comes from the actual process of creation, and also recognizing that most of what's created probably won't work out. But in doing that, right, like, that's where the gems are found. You have to start mining to find them. Yeah, this is so powerful. Thank you for going into that.
Yeah, the creative feeling thing, that's a myth. There is no such thing.
I've had so many conversations about this with people. With my cousin Sam, we ran a branding and design firm. We had many conversations about, like, getting into that creative zone. And I think a lot of people feel like, yeah, they have to somehow get into that creative zone. But if you just wait for that feeling to come, right, you might be waiting a very long time. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Tendayi, you're now an associate partner, I believe, at a Strategyzer. Is that correct? But you also have your own brand, right? Like, for your website, books, speaking. What are some of the best practices that you can share with those who maybe are partners in a firm, but they also want to develop their own personal brand?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. So, I mean, I came to Strategyzer because I've only been with them for like 4 or 5 months now. So I came to Strategyzer already having a brand built up. I mean, collaborating with Alexander Ostwald is like a dream. He's one of my all-time heroes. I love the work that he does. And so to get an opportunity to work with him every day is just really inspiring. But I came to Strategyzer already having built up a brand, because my intention was never to join another firm, was to just keep growing my own brand, to just keep doing consulting as a solo practitioner. But there was a real big draw in terms of aligning my work with the work that Strategyzer does. And there's like a value there, right? So there's a value to my personal brand to have the association with Strategyzer. And then there's a value to Strategyzer to have my brand also grow. And that was something that I really loved Alex for, which is he allowed two thinkers to share a platform inside the same organization. I believe that even if you're just an employee inside an organization, I think you benefit by creating your own personal brand career-wise, because sometimes now there's no job for life anymore, right? We have to be in charge of like building our own brand equity. But also the partnership gains from that, right? as your brand reputation, personal brand reputation grows, so does the value in the partnership as well, because all that brand equity just accrues to the brand, to the company, right? So there's a dual benefit there. And so if you're a partner in a consulting firm, I mean, part of the work that you have to do is to bring loads of revenue, right? Make sure that the company is succeeding in terms of the work that you're doing. But again, part of bringing revenue and also just even the level of fees you can charge for your keynotes or your consulting or your workshop. Like the more your personal brand goes up, the more fees that you can charge. And so I believe that it's almost fundamental if you're a consultant to build your personal brand. It's just really important.
Yeah, I had this conversation with one of our coaching clients who runs a consulting firm that now has about 5 or 6 team members. And we were just talking about the opportunity for him to not only embrace, but really like encourage his team members to more actively create their own content. Like each one of them has an expertise, has an area that they're interested in. And rather than just the founder solely trying to create content and be the sole expert, there's a lot more value that can be created for the brand in total and for the purpose of even like inbound inquiries and business development by having more people creating more content, going to more conferences, right? Just engaging in more conversations that benefits both the individual and also the brand as well.
A lot of consulting firms struggle with having like a large part of their staff not being billable.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they're not billable is because when the client turns up, they're looking for the thought leader that drew them to the consulting firm. So the more of those that you have, the better for the organization as a whole.
Definitely. Tendayi, you've been in the consulting world now for a while. You've worked with some very well-known organizations. What do you see as being some of the most common mistakes that consultants make when they're trying to kind of build their own brand and their business?
In the innovation space in particular, I think the consultant that turns up with a playbook and not sufficient practical pragmatism, what I call the brutality of the lean startup coach, show up to your organization and they open their playbook. And regardless of what's going on in your company, you're going to follow the playbook. So what you end up with is like repetition. We need to talk to customers. So let's go do a customer interview. And you say, no, we've done some customer interviews and we have data. And consultant says, no, you didn't do them the right way. There's a way to do it. It's in my playbook. And so I find that consultants that are playbook followers rather than first principle thinkers I think that's a really, really huge mistake. I think the role of the consultant is to really create value. The best consultants ultimately make themselves redundant. That ability to leave the organization that you've passed through better off than when you first turned up. This is much more important than following your playbook. We're not building houses, you're not executing on it. Even when you're building houses, actually, the great architects are the ones that turn up on location and suddenly see that the terrain is a little bit different than they thought and change the plan.
Right. When you're saying that, I'm kind of envisioning a house that's being built, and if all of a sudden there was a big tree trunk, right, kind of coming out of the ground, and you tried to build a house on top, your house would kind of be like, it would not sit flat. It would not be stable. And so if people weren't willing to adjust their house a little bit, right, to fit for that big root, then you wouldn't be on stable ground. And definitely that's the same in consulting world. You've made your way onto the Thinkers 50 list. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Clearly, you've made a mark. There's many people, though, who work in innovation and strategy who haven't reached the level of visibility and success that you have. And so I'm wondering, for the benefit of everyone listening and reading this, what have you done that has helped you reach the place that you are today? Like, are there any specific actions or steps that you can kind of look back on and say, these had the greatest impact? These were like the 20% of actions that were done that had the 80% of the actual impact. What maybe stands out for you?
When I'm asked that question, I often feel that I need to be very honest in my responses as well. And part of it is like just good fortune. I've been very, very blessed. I'm a Christian. So I feel really, really blessed in the work that I've been doing to get the recognition that I've gotten. Now, of course, those blessings, they meet you at a place where you have, they say luck is fortune meets preparation.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Dorie Clark says the 3 pillars of being a thought leader is, you have to write loads of content, just produce loads of content, whether it's writing or video or speaking, and then get social proof, right? Start getting social proof to kind of support that content and sort of finding reasons why people should listen to you. And then later on, build a network that allows that content to kind of spread. So at the beginning, I was willing to do anything for free to get content out into the world. I remember it used to really frustrate my wife to say, why are you doing it for free? Just wanted to get the word out. I was willing to run workshops for free. I was willing to write articles for free. I was willing to speak at conferences for free, just to put my content out there. I ultimately knew that the thing I needed to do was to write a book. And so with Dan Tomer and Esther Hans, we just sort of buckled down. It took us like a year. I remember like checking into a hotel in London and waking up on a Saturday and writing all day. And then waking up the next day, first thing in the morning, 7 a.m., writing again until like almost like 9, 10 at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember that I knew I needed to do that. And then sort of just taking the small opportunity that was given to us, because we published with a small Dutch company. We didn't even publish with a major publisher. Then you start to get lucky now. You know, the book starts to make noise. You start to get a bit of buzz. You win an award. And before you know it, you're shortlisted for the Innovation Award of the Thinkers 50. And then you're listed on the radar list of emerging thinkers. So all of these things that kind of connect each other, and none of these things happen unless you're doing the work. And so what I would say to people is what you don't want to do is to say, I have a roadmap and my goal is to get to this place. And so I'm going to follow these particular steps. What you really want to do is just say, okay, my goal is to create a reputation for myself. So I know that these are the pillars. I need content, social proof, and a network. And so I'm just going to start working. I'm just going to put my best foot forward. And as things emerge and opportunities come up, I'm going to grab and use them because I know exactly what I want to use them for.
So you mentioned you're writing for free, you're speaking for free, right? All that kind of stuff. How long was that period of time? While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
That was like a couple of years, 2-3 years of just doing that. I mean, I was able to feed my family. I remember my first consulting gig. I was getting like $150 a day or something like that. And I was like...
And that wasn't 1943 or something?
No. That was like 2004.
Right.
$150 a day. Then I got to $300 a day. And it was just like, it was enough money to put food on the table. It wasn't a big deal.
Right.
I had to kind of slowly build up that rep and kind of get to where I got to. But it was long, it was difficult, and it was hard.
With 2 other co-authors, wrote the first book with a small Dutch publisher. You said it started to reach people or make an impact, gain some visibility. What did you do, or what did the publisher do to make that happen? Because again, there's lots of people who publish books and nothing happens with those books. So what did the 3 of you or the publisher do to create more visibility and exposure for the book?
When we first started, we didn't do it on Kickstarter. We did it on a platform called Strategyzer, which is like I'm using Kickstarter as a verb really here. We did a Kickstarter campaign. And so that allowed us to get like our first 250 buyers, which was a threshold needed to be introduced to publishers.
And how do you get those buyers for that? Do you just like email your email list and ask friends, family, all that?
Yeah, email list, friends, family, phoning clients.
Mm-hmm.
I offered a free workshop to one client. They bought a whole bunch of books. That was the kind of like the hustle. It was just like, that was the grimy. That's like the one person at a time.
Mm-hmm.
That's like dirty elements of like starting this stuff, right? You have to be willing to do things that don't scale. Like you couldn't build a career if that's what you had to do all the time. But at the beginning of your career, you have to do things that don't scale. So pick up the phone, call people, have conversations. And it took me maybe almost 2 months to get that 250. I just did a Kickstarter campaign now for my book, Pirates in the Navy. And it took me 2 weeks to sell 15 grand worth of sales. So it's different kind of now. And so I had to do that, and that helped. And then when the book came out, you sent it to those people. But then I had this deal that I was doing. I was giving up money, payment for work, to say, I'll come and do a workshop, but you have to buy 250 copies of my book for your company. I'll come and give a keynote, but don't pay me to do the keynote. Buy 400 books and distribute it to everyone who's in the conference. So I was giving up actual money just to get the book to go out. And just by doing that, right, you start to create that somebody else reads the book and then they recommend to somebody else. But until you actually plant those seeds out into the market, you're not going to get that traction.
There's so much value and gold in what you're sharing right now. There was a little nugget in there that you said that people shouldn't really be trying to scale, maybe in some ways automate things, right? Find the shortcut right away. And I think that's the mindset that a lot of people have. When I talked with consultants that we coach, a big challenge that people have is just this mindset of, and I think it's also because there's so many gurus out there just saying buy this or buy new technology tool or this new social platform or whatever it is. It's going to help you to get all these things done while you go to sleep, and you'll wake up and your life will be forever changed. But building a business, which is what consulting is, especially at the starting stage, or if you're starting your marketing, takes work. And you have to be prepared, right, to put in that work. As you said, you're planting seeds, right? So as things start to grow, now all of a sudden you can do the things that people are telling you that you can do in terms of being able to create real leverage. Or for you, book sales, it's takes a whole while to get 250 sales the first time, but then now down the road, right, you've built things up, you fill 15,000 in a much shorter period of time. And, we've certainly seen the same things. Many of our clients have seen the same things, but it's hard to feel that and believe that you have to put in that work, right? Everyone's kind of looking for the shortcut earlier on, but it's so important to do that. So I'm glad that you're also sharing that and seeing, and I hope that everyone listening is going to look at what they're currently doing and ask themselves, maybe I can hustle a little bit harder, maybe I can push a little bit more, maybe I can plant more seeds now. Because if you're viewing this as a long-term game and not a short-term game, then you're going to benefit from that.
Yeah, if you're going to build it as a career, for sure, you have to think about the small incremental steps that you have to take to get to where you need to go. You can't be... Another thing that I want to say is I was doing this, right, after having left a successful career as an academic, which means I had to go back down into the ground before I could come back up again. Because I could have stayed as an academic. I think my next promotion was going to be tenure to become professor. I was really close, but I decided that that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a consultant and build a consulting business. And so I had to go back down to the dirt, start doing work for free again, start giving away stuff so that you can build a buzz and reputation around yourself. And so I think people should never be scared to do stuff like that.
How do your family feel about that? Your wife especially, I know you mentioned that she was saying, why do all this free work? But I talk with a lot of consultants who their spouse doesn't totally get the entrepreneurial bug that they have, and they really want to go out on their own, leave their cushy corporate job, but there's not total alignment with their spouse on doing that. So what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I had to show and prove. I had to earn every little thing that I got from my wife because she's not part of the world that we're living. So when you tell them that I can make X amount of thousands from giving a keynote, it didn't make any sense. That doesn't happen. Well, you're going to leave a real job for that. And so she stuck with me. So she didn't leave me, right? She loved me all through it all. I had to show, okay, look, babes, it works. Look, I've got this first thing. And then over time, it became clear that the path was right. You have to be brave through it because it's hard, especially when table and there's children involved, right? It's very emotionally taxing.
Tendayi, you've mentioned pricing, right? Or kind of dollars and pounds a few times in the conversation. What approach do you use for your pricing these days? When you're consulting with an organization or when you're giving a talk, how do you approach your pricing? Is it done on an hourly basis, daily basis? Is you looking at retainers or value, or what's kind of your approach to pricing?
Yeah, I guess it all depends on what it is. On workshops and keynotes, it's just a flat price. And what I have to teach myself is to say a really large number in the mirror. Because I still do that thing where you type the number in the email, then you delete it.
We've all experienced that.
Right.
Sure.
And then you go, okay, let me type it again. And then you have to make yourself press send. And so that's something that I kind of have to be disciplined about. And the reason why I have to be disciplined about that is that I've recently lost a really well-paying, like 10 times workshop because I acquiesced and considered to do something for cheaper on that day. So once that day was committed, I could not then go and cancel that day. But in the meantime, another client came up and said, we'll pay you 10 times what I'd acquiesced to do a workshop. And I said, I'm not available on that day. And I kicked myself. And so that taught me that I have to start really thinking about my value and asking for that value more confidently. But it's still a struggle.
Yeah, completely. Our time is our most valuable asset. And I think that's a lot of people, conversations with consultants. It's a challenge because the first feeling or tendency is to accept money, right? When there's an opportunity in front of you, it's like, okay, I'll take that. I'm going to make some money and I'll get to serve this client. But they're often not thinking about, is this in line with my business model, my financial goals? And is this really connecting to like where I want to be? And it's hard, you're right. Because at that time, you're thinking, well, maybe nothing else will come. And so I might as well take this. But it all needs to kind of fit because, what if something else does come up, right? And it's a good lesson for people to have. Tendayi, you've said that the most successful companies should be worried about the future. I want to ask you what you really mean by that and why that is. And it really stood out to me because I've had this conversation with clients before, and I actually feel that successful entrepreneurs tend to be worried, but they're able to channel that worry into growth and into not kind of falling into complacency. But I'm really interested to hear your take on why that is. Yeah.
So I think that the most successful companies have to worry about the future, because if you wait until you're no longer successful to worry about the future, then it's too late. Like, you may not recover. So that's one of the reasons. Like, think about that when you're still doing well, because then you have the time, resource, attention. And also, it's not an emotional thing for you, right? You're making sensible decisions. So you're just trying to avoid putting yourself in a situation where you're now reacting because you're under pressure. So you want to just start thinking about the future then. But also, the work I do led me to an ultimate truth about human beings, which is that there's nothing that makes people more complacent than success. Success can make people really lazy to think about what could stop them from being successful. And I'm not saying become like somebody who doesn't enjoy your success or smell the roses or any of that, right? Because you can also go too far. But you don't want to like lie in the roses and drink champagne and never get up. And so my feeling is that a lot of the companies that get disrupted because they've become so complacent that they no longer have the muscle of entrepreneurship. They're just now kind of executing on what they've always done. And when presented with a threat, they dismiss it as, they're too small to deal with us. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the lady was describing the reaction of the Blockbuster CEO to the threat of Netflix.
Right.
And he was saying to her, if that ever becomes anything, we'll just buy it. Right? Like, you've gone too far. If your success has led you to that level of complacency, you've now gone too far. And so my feeling is to always remind people, like, the reason why make hay while the sun shines is a piece of advice human beings get is because it's really hard to make hay while the sun shines. You want to go lie in the sun, right? You don't want to be working. And so that's a discipline that every human being should have. It's the paradox of humanity, which is the more success you get, the more you should worry about being unable to sustain that success because you become complacent because of that success.
The real maybe optimal solution, or at least the way that I try and approach it, is really the balance, right? So it's work hard, work towards achieving success and goals, but do it in a meaningful way, meaning that you're not just working to a destination and not enjoying the journey, but rather making the most of every moment as much as possible, recognizing that there's going to be challenges, you're going to get knocked down, but you get back up. And you don't always push 100% on the accelerator. Take time to slow down, right? Coast and enjoy the sun, enjoy everything around you, those moments, because you never know what's going to happen in life, but keep working towards something, right? Keep working towards what your ultimate goal is. And if you do that, you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Tendayi, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast here today and really appreciate it. I've enjoyed this conversation. I want to make sure that people can also learn more about you and your work. So just take a minute and tell us where the best places to do that.
Yeah, so tendayiviki.com. That's my personal website. And also you can find out more about the company I work with, Strategyzer, at strategyzer.com. Strategyzer, Strategyzer.com.
Perfect. We'll have all that linked up and full transcript in the show notes. So if you'd head over to consultingsuccess.com and type in Tendayi, that's Tendayi, you will find this episode with all those details. Tendayi, thanks again so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Much appreciate the conversation.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.